Hi, I'm Hayley Victoria and welcome back to my crime and policing channel. As you can see, I've moved, so I'm now in my favourite chair next to my fabulous bookshelf. It's full of all sorts of weirdness, so you might be like, what is that? This is a bivalve, which is a fossil I found on a beach. Interesting fact, right? And this is my favourite book at the moment, which is my 1891 copy of The Man of Genius by Lombroso. This bookshelf is full of crime and policing books. You can probably see all the old books up there. Stuff about the occult and things like that. I'm just very interested in mystery, obviously. And things I have to have a good look at and think about. Anyway, we're going to carry on our forensic journey today. But we're going a little bit deeper and we're looking at biological evidence. Now, if you did biology in school, which I hope most people did, you know that when I'm talking about biological evidence, that means it's come from something that's, living. Could be anything, couldn't it? But we're looking at it in relation to people today. So in liquid form, that could be blood, semen, other bodily fluids, saliva. Other physical things could be hair, fingernail scrapings, etc. So yeah, we're looking at biological evidence. The first thing we're going to look at is blood. Blood can tell us a lot about the crime scene. It can tell us a lot about victims, a lot about suspects, a lot about what's happened. Blood is instrumental in helping us figure out who done it, which is what we all want, isn't it? We want to get justice for those victims and get those people who've committed these atrocious offences behind bars. So let's start then. When you're collecting blood from a crime scene, if it's a liquid pool of blood, you'd use a gauze or another sterile cloth or something to soak it up. It'd be air dried and examined in the labs and stuff, not by you at a crime scene. If it's on something else, so say it's on like a piece of clothing or something else like this, they would be allowed to air dry in a sterile environment and then packaged up properly to be sent for examination. What that means is you don't crumple it, the stain has to stay where it is. So you're not, we need to see where it's come from and how that's happened. So don't scrunch things up and stuff like that. That obviously, like I said, it's air dried and sent for examination, because if it's not air dried and it's put in plastic bags, you might find that the moisture can corrupt those pieces of evidence, and we don't want any of that, do we? We want as much evidence as we can, because without evidence we haven't got anything. Evidence is important, guys. All right, what else can blood tell us then? Well, blood groups, for one, are really interesting when you look at crime scenes. There are 4 main blood groups: A, B, AB and O. It's like, why is it not C? What's it called? Anyway, A, B, AB and O. They're the 4 main blood groups, but there are RHD positive and negative for all of those. So technically there are 8 groups. Discovered by Carl Landsteiner originally, a long time ago. We'll talk about the tests and stuff later on, not today, on how he discovered that. But anyway, yeah, these blood types can tell us a lot at crime scene. They can tell us maybe if the suspect who's left some blood behind at the scene could be the suspect or could be exonerated. So let's say we find some blood at a scene that's not the victim's and it's type A, and our suspect is type B. That tells us that suspect couldn't be that person who left that blood because it's a different blood type. Obviously that's really important, right? Yeah, so we also want to find out if the blood at the scene is actually from a human and if it is actually blood. And tests can show these. So early tests, preliminary tests, can tell us if the substance we are looking at is blood or not. And if it's from a human or a rabbit or, whatever is being squashed on the road, it can tell us where it's come from, which is obviously going to save us a lot of time when we're investigating stuff. We're not chasing false leads and things like that. Or looking at fruit juice. Yeah, it has happened, and we'll talk about that in a different case. Okay, so blood can also tell us a lot more at a crime scene. It can tell us how someone died, how long they've been dead for. It can tell us all sorts. And we look at something called blood spatter analysis. This is also known as blood splatter analysis or blood pattern analysis, depending whereabouts in the world you are or when you studied. So they have been called different things. Essentially, it's the same thing, where we're looking at the blood, where it is, how it is formed at the scene. And that can tell us a lot. So like I mentioned, it can tell us the location of the wounds, how many there are, the velocity, speed of which something has entered the body, how many times someone's been struck. It can tell us whether the height from which the blood's dropped. It can tell us if there's been like a backswing on something, that's me backswinging, and repeated strikes. It can tell us the position of the suspect and the victim, the position of the suspect in relation to the victim, the movement of both of these, the distance from the target, the direction of the impact. Can tell us a lot. And the size and the shape of these droplets can tell us loads. So you can tell the time of death by how the blood is pooled, so how long it's taken, and the amount of blood will tell us how people died as well. It's really, really fascinating blood. You know, blood droplets are very different. If you drop it on a flat surface like a screen or something, an iPhone screen, it would be like kind of curved at the edges. If it's on a more textured surface, it kind of scallops at the edges. Really is important. And the angle of the blood tells us the angle of the strikes. It's really, really fascinating. Right, what we're going to do is talk about a case, as always, of where blood spatter analysis has helped investigators uncover a really serious crime. It's by looking at the case files and what happened in court, it's one of the most shocking crimes I've read, and I've read quite a few. It's gruesome, in all honesty. So if you are a little bit squeamish and you don't like stuff like that, I'd recommend maybe not watching the rest of this. I'm talking about the crime of Brittany Norwood in Maryland in 2011. So Brittany worked in a yoga store with her friend Jayna Murray, and yeah, they worked in this yoga store selling, you know, yoga things, obviously. One day a crime was reported. So Brittany was found tied up in the bathroom with a slash to her trousers, and she got some minor wounds to her hands and her face. There was also Jayna Murray. She was found dead in another part of the building. She got 322, at least 322 wounds from 5+ different implements. She'd also got 107 defensive wounds. So when someone comes to attack you, and you can see them coming, you put your hands up. It's just instant reaction. You go like that to protect your face. So the defensive wounds will be all over here, hands, arms, wherever she's trying to stop this person from attacking her. 107 wounds. Also recovered at the crime scene was some footwear marks and some size 14 trainer marks in blood. Brittany said that 2 people had come in and attacked them. She'd been sexually assaulted. You know, her friend had been murdered. The police weren't 100% what was going on here. For 2 days, though, they completely believed it. Went on this big, massive hunt for these 2 people who committed these atrocious crimes. They didn't actually find those people, and that's because they didn't actually exist. They'd been fabricated by Norwood. What had actually happened is, well, the people in the store next door, the Apple store, you can send me a free iPhone if you want for mentioning that, Apple, they heard 2 people arguing, 2 women's voices arguing, and one woman screaming, "Help me." Doesn't sound like Norwood's story, does it? They also did some tests. We're looking at biological evidence. They also did some tests on Norwood and realised that she hadn't been sexually assaulted. It didn't seem that way. When they looked at the blood patterns in the room where they found Murray's body, they found that the angle in which the strikes were and how the blood had then travelled showed that she'd been attacked while she was on the floor. So she'd been attacked a number of times, and then when she went to the floor, she was further attacked at least 100 times while she was unconscious on the floor. So these aren't defensive wounds either. They also found out that Brittany had lied about these shoes. She'd got a male size 14 shoe and made these marks. The judge at the time said it was the most atrocious crime he'd ever seen, ever. And although in court Brittany said that she was sorry to the family, they didn't quite believe it. And thankfully she's been jailed for life with no chance of parole because it's a hideous, hideous crime. And she tried to say in court that she snapped. It was, spur of the moment attack. She just snapped. but you don't snap and stab somebody 322 times. And these implements are hammers, a wrench, something, one of those poles that holds the shop mannequin up the pins. Then she was bludgeoned with that. That's not snapping. It was also said that early that day, Murray had actually found some products in Norwood's bag, some stolen stuff from the shop. So maybe that's what did it. We'll never know, will we? Because I don't think Norwood would ever tell us what actually happened. And Murray, unfortunately, can't tell us herself. So yeah, blood pattern analysis helped identify those lines of investigation which led to Norwood's arrest and conviction. It's been instrumental in lots of other high-profile cases too, some more that we'll talk about in different videos. The Stephen Lawrence murder in England, so young Stephen was at a bus stop, just, not doing anything wrong, and he was racially attacked by a big group of white thugs. Stephen, bless him, tried to run to get help. People didn't help him. This massive racist attack in England. It was absolutely awful. Some blood was found on one of these suspects' collars on his jacket, and it was Stephen's, and that helped secure a conviction for 2 of the people responsible for that attack, which is a small amount of justice for that family. But we'll talk about the Stephen Lawrence case in full, because it is a massive thing, and hopefully it's changed. If one thing has come of it, it's changed police in the UK for the better, and they're going to be less racist all around, because, awful. But yeah, blood pattern analysis can help us a lot in crimes. Blood types can tell us a lot. Blood is brilliant. It's got all sorts in it. You can find all sorts in blood. And yeah, that's it for today. Next time we're going to talk about other bodily fluids and how we recover those and what they can do at scenes. One thing to remember is always wear gloves and PPE if you do go to a crime scene. And if you go to a crime scene, I hope you belong there, like you're an investigator, not just a bystander. Always wear PPE, never touch anything, never put anything in your mouth, never put your DNA at a scene, and never take their DNA with you, because that is gross. Thank you. See you next time.